What's the darkest secret anyone has ever told you?
Silent scan.
I have droopy eyes and a learning disability due to head trauma I sustained as a child. But I never knew what happened. I was drinking with my older stepbrother, and he broke down crying, telling me he's sorry for hitting me and causing all those issues. Apparently, when he was 15 he decided to strike me in the head, and I wasn't the same after. I can't tell you how much it hurts knowing this.
Silent scan.
While I was in treatment at Belmont Hospital, I had a guy come over to me and sit next to me, only for him to tell me he was raped when he was a child, and that he was going to tell his mom for the first time that day. He just kept asking me, how am I going to tell her without making her think it's her fault? Heartbreaking. This is so heartbreaking. And I've actually seen this from the other side. Kind of. I used to be a sexual assault advocate, and during one of my hospital outreaches I sat with a woman who had been assaulted at a park by a man who she met there, and who she talked down from committing suicide. Yep. This guy confided in her that he wanted to kill himself. She helped him, and he proceeded to assault her and beat her to the point of nearly killing her at a park. This woman was torn up, black and blue everywhere, and all she kept talking about was how in the world she was going to tell her 2 sons, who loved her to bits and were super protective of her, single mom. She knew they would find a way to blame themselves, and that's what was hurting her the most. I think about her a lot out of most of my clients. I hope she's recovering well with her sons by her side. People are trash.
Silent scan.
My older sister admitted to me that when she was a teenager, she went to the back streets, an area full of warehouses, with our dad's gun and thought about killing herself. My sister and I are 5 years apart. We didn't become close until I was about 13. She admitted this to me when I was about 14 or 15. I don't know if she remembers confiding in me about that detail, but I'm grateful she thought about her family members. I can't imagine growing up without her.
Silent scan.
I suppose it wasn't a secret. I just didn't know about it for a long time. My little sister was molested by our babysitter's husband when she was 4 and I was 6. She told me when we were in our mid-30s. It triggered a memory. Walking around the house looking for her, and finally walking into the garage where she was there with him. He shouted at me to get out, which I did. I didn't see what was going on. She was being forced to give him a job, or I didn't process it. It also triggered another memory. His older daughter, 12-ish I think, undressing for the boys in the playhouse in the backyard. At the time I thought it was really weird, and now I know it was due to trauma. I tried to get my sister to do something about it, but she didn't want to, and the statute of limitations was long expired. Tried telling her that she maybe could save some other kid. Sis is dead now. Drank herself to death in her early 40s.
Silent scan.
That someone I knew ran someone over with the car a few years ago. He couldn't help it. It was raining, and an elderly woman dressed dark suddenly stepped out between parked cars. He had no chance to react in time. The dark part being that, when the police came to inspect the case, they told him not to worry, because they would take care that he didn't get into trouble. Because the old lady was just a foreigner. They reported that his car was in perfect condition. His wipers brand new. Anything to deflect any fault at all from him.
Silent scan.
My friend came to school and told me something like this one day in 4th grade. Dude, I just ran into this old lady's mailbox in front of her house with my big ass bike on the way to school. She was sitting out front on her wheelchair. So I got the hell out of there. Anyways, she wheeled herself down to see the damage, lost control on the steep pavement to the road, and got hit by a car. He said he had never biked so fast before. We are pretty sure she died. God may rest her soul.
Silent scan.
When I was 15, my cousin and I raided my dad's homebrew, and got plastered. That night she confessed to me that her father, my dad's brother-in-law, was a secret cross-dresser. She come home early from a party, and discovered him. Nothing to be ashamed of on his part, but he was staunchly conservative, and a total pompous ass. Last person you'd expect. My dad and grandfather couldn't stand the bloke. I broke her confidence, and ultimately told my dad I was a kid, and I didn't know what to do with the information. Dad of course didn't tell anyone, but he did say, I'll only tell one person, just the old man, when he's on his deathbed, so he can die with a smile on his face.
Silent scan.
My buddy killed 2 people trying to rob him with a rock in Brazil while on vacation. He came back with bad scratches and cuts, but he never told the authorities, in fear that they'd arrest him, or flip the story because he's a foreigner. Wait, he killed them with a rock, or they tried to rob him with a rock? He killed them with a rock. They tried to rob him with a long pipe and a pistol. I'm assuming it wasn't loaded, but I never asked for the deep details, and I've never brought it up since he's told me. This happened over 4 years ago. and it still bugs him to this day. He was a collegiate wrestler at the time, and one of the nicest people you'd meet. Nowadays he's still very nice. But when we go out I notice him always looking over his shoulder and scanning the room. Not predatorily but almost like he's waiting for another attack. Makes me sad. He has to deal with that now.
Silent scan.
I had a conversation with my mom after she downed a bottle of pills. She was out of it, and was 100% honest. I was never planned for, wanted, or loved. I was an immediate regret. I knew this already, but it was nice to hear it out loud. I didn't call 911 or anything. Just lets the cards fall where they may. My mom went right back to gaslighting me, and doesn't remember the conversation. She's confused why I moved 300 miles away and only talk to her twice a year. Oh God. I can't imagine how that must have felt. How old were you then? I was 21 when I had that conversation, I think. I moved out when I was 16. So our relationships had already failed. It wasn't super surprising. I already put together most of the story. I didn't have the most traumatic childhood. Just severe neglect. I had to learn socializing, and how to interact with the world through trial and error. Most people are shown, and taught by their parents. I'm weird because of it, and have my share of problems.
Silent scan.
A couple of years back I was sitting at the bar, watching a baseball game and having a pint. Just a handful of other people there. And me and this one guy at the bar were engaged in the typical sports conversation. After a couple of hours of the game, this guy felt comfortable enough with me, or just needed to get it out, to tell me about his rape. I didn't really know what to do, except just let him get it out. The "it's not your fault" platitude seems pretty hollow in the situation, but there wasn't much else I could muster. I asked if he was seeking help, and that there are many support groups for men that have been through similar situations. I offered the guy a hug, and he damn near tackled me. I'm a pretty introverted person, so that level of trust from a stranger kind of freaks me out. But I hope I was at least able to help him somewhat, even if it was to just release some of the pressure for a little while.
Silent scan.
I had a coworker who used to confide in me. She got drunk one time, and told me the reason behind her divorce. She found a VHS, made with an old school video camera, in which her daughter, 11 years old at the time, was sleeping in her underwear. The video was recorded secretly by her husband, and hidden away with other disgusting Bayesian material. Dude was perving on his own daughter. This all happened 10 years before I even met my coworker. Charges were never pressed, and to this day she doesn't know where he is.
Silent scan.
A friend confessed that he moved back to our hometown to take care of his dying father. Ended up having an affair with his father's wife. She was a foreign bride, closer to his age than his father's. At first my friend joked about banging his stepmother, but as he got drunker he got sadder, and eventually his true feelings about what happened came out, and he ended up sobbing in my arms. Grief can make people do wildly out of character things. I don't know your friend, but that's what it sounds like to me.
Silent scan.
A few years back, a friend of mine broke down crying one night, after a lot of drinks. He told me his uncle committed suicide when he was 12, and that they were really close and would play chess together. One day, he went over to play chess with him, and saw his uncle's body through the window. Apparently instead of calling the police, he freaked out, and went home, and just locked himself in his room. 2 hours later, his mum came in, crying, to tell him his uncle had been found, and he just didn't say anything. To this day, none of his family knows he saw the body first, and I know that he blames himself, and thinks he could have saved him if he'd have said something. I have tried to convince him to tell his family, but he thinks no good would come from it, which I kind of understand.
Silent scan.
We all knew that a friend of mine was from a troubled background, but none of us quite knew the full extent. She didn't speak to her dad or her older brother, and people thought she was a total brat, because her dad would occasionally send her huge sums of money, which she'd show zero appreciation for, and usually squander. She also had a quite clearly unhealthy relationship with sex which, when her classmates were young and stupid, led to her being labeled SLT, or easy. She had a fairly rough time in school by the sounds of it, but I only met her when we were about 22 to 23. She tried to kill herself one day. After a bad breakup, I found her, and took her to hospital. It turns out she has had horrific BPD most her life, and been in and out of therapy and medication. It stemmed from a traumatic childhood, where her older brother used to pimp her out to his friends. When she was underage to settle drugs bets etc., she took a knife, and tried to kill her brother one time, which led to the breakdown of her family. Her father and older brother cast her out of the family. Her mother took her in but resented her for it. It led to a trigger of abandonment, which explains why she took the breakup so badly, I suppose.
Silent scan.
My friend grew up with a horrifically abusive father. One time, her younger brother stole a candy bar, then got her older sister to take the fall for it. The dad bought a Costco pack of full-sized candy bars, and forced the older sister to eat them until she vomited, then made her eat her vomit. I've heard it all working in children's mental health, but this story really bothers me. Please don't reply with similar stories because I can't take them. My mom used to help me make houses for the fairies. I insisted would come visit and need a place to rest. She has quite the engineering brain, so the houses were always beautiful and well built. She always messed with the food I left out for them too, and vehemently denied doing so. We have always liked to watch the clouds, and find shapes in them while listening to Vivaldi. 4 Seasons. I was the only 4-year-old in my preschool. His favorite musician was Vivaldi. She came to my school plays and taught me to love simple things like crunchy leaves and rainy days. I just wanted you to have some happy childhood memories from a stranger in South Africa.
Silent scan.